Thank you so much, Kaylee. We'll check in with weather again a little bit later on in the show. Right now, I've got our live guest, Mary O'Connell, our 3PL expert from St. Louis, Missouri. We're talking ESG. What's going on, Mary?
Oh yeah, not too much today. We're just excited to dive all into, ESG's corporate social responsibility, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's great. So let's talk about this here. We're talking about it from a shipper's perspective today. So are shippers all in? Are they just jumping on board making this stuff happen? Or are they waiting until somebody sues them and forces them, or they can't find any customers? Because there's all kinds of studies that go out there, right? You can't attract talent unless you have a good ESG that you can prove, et cetera. So where are we at with this?
Yeah, so actually the NTT released some data earlier this year that said 80% of shippers were implementing some sort of ESG, corporate social responsibility program. They were the ones pushing this change, and they were the ones that included it in their future, whereas probably only about 20% of 3PLs were including it in their future. So it's definitely one of the biggest disparities there between a shipper and a 3PL. So it's one of those things where shippers are wanting it, and obviously 3PLs aren't necessarily as readily providing it. So it's one of those where you're just going to have to if it's not in your plan as 3PL, you're going to have to change things around if you want to go out and prospect and find new customers and really, be that value add that shipper wants. So it's definitely part of the future. It's just a matter of how quickly someone embraces it and implements it.
I feel like a lot of folks, especially in our industry, focus on the environmental piece of ESG standards. But the other two letters of societal and governance are just as important, especially when you come at looking at diversifying your workforce and making your workforce an accessible and an exciting place to join. And that, I think, has a lot to do with how people are trying to attract the talent. Like you mentioned, Michael Vincent, is that a diverse workforce gets more things done because you have different perspectives, you've got different life experiences, and different ways of problem solving. So when it comes to which one of those 3 points companies and shippers should really focus on, which one do you think is the most important? And which one do you think is the one that folks are kind of leaving the least attention to right now?
I think they're all kind of the most important. I mean, obviously, I can't say that one is more important than the other because you kind of need all of them to have a strong program. But I would say that everyone right now seems to be focusing on the environmental part of it, where it's all about our sustainability initiatives, our net zero carbon, going carbon neutral. But like you mentioned, there is such a strong part of that is social responsibility as well. So it's one of those where you're going to have to be aware. And it's not just necessarily about hiring a bunch of fresh out of college kids that, probably have similar life experiences to everyone else that's their age. You got to really, truly get a diverse mix of people, both in different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and different ages as well. Like if you have a company that's all 21, 22-year-olds, that's great. You're going to have a lot of go-getters, a lot of people that's out there driving change and being very competitive and getting those rates and getting that business that you want. But then you also need some of the people that might be a little older, have different backgrounds where they've seen rapid growth very quickly, and they know kind of how to best maneuver it and handle it. So that way you're not going to have that big contraction phase where you're looking at layoffs or anything like that. It's really, truly about getting a little bit of everything, like a good buffet. You want to go get a little bit of everything to make a good meal.
Yeah, you get a little bit of everything, and then you go back for the good stuff. I understand. I've been through many buffets and brunches, so that's how you do it. I agree with you 100%. I totally agree with that strategy. So when we look at the 80% and the 20%, right? We look at the 80% of the shippers say that's at least in their plans to do something in the future, which is great, but you can get busted for greenwashing for having a plan. I mean, a plan doesn't do anything. Once you're doing it, then it's there. So I'm not sure I buy the 80%, but we'll say the 80%. But let's focus on the 20%. Why only 20% of brokers? Is it because they don't have the creative ability to figure out how to start an environmental or a social or governance type of program in ESG? Is it because when they look at it, they're like, okay, well, we really don't do anything with fuel. We can't really do carbon. What else do we do? Well, we put a recycling bin in a corner for our people for their beer cups at the end of Friday after Beer Friday or something like that. Seriously, I mean, I'm making fun of some of these things here just to make a point. Are there suggestions? Were there reasons given as to why there's only 20%?
There wasn't any reasons or there wasn't any like supporting data behind it. It just was a flat number. But from kind of what I've seen, it's everyone just thinks that one of these programs is so expensive and it's so difficult to implement. We have to buy software, we have to buy, all this stuff and do all of this integration. And we're looking at a year out to get everything up to speed and running out, because everyone knows how quickly software integration is. It doesn't exactly happen very quickly sometimes. So it's one of those where I think everyone thinks the cost associated with it is so large that it's not even necessarily worth doing, or, we'll worry about it later. No one really wants it right now anyway, which clearly shippers want it. And you can start something with just something as simple as, for an environmental moment, calling your power company and have your power fueled by a renewable resource. That's it. That's literally as steep as it has to go. And it's all about, it doesn't have to be an overnight change. You don't have to be perfect immediately right off the bat. It's just little steps you take every day. And whether that's send your recruiters and some of your HR people to like a seminar to know where to go to find different candidates. Because if you primarily recruit at a university, then you're going to run into a lot of those 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds that are great and wonderful and really help out in operations support and, help out with some of those more entry-level positions. Those are great. Like, that's never going to be a bad strategy. But when you come to some of your senior leadership and some of your more upper management positions, if all your recruiters and HR people are used to going to colleges and recruiting college kids, that's probably not going to be the best place to go find some management candidates. So it's definitely one of those where, even if it's just investing a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there in different initiatives, that's it. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be some giant program where you rebrand and, you do all this extra work. No, it could literally just be as simple as like just extra training for people to know where to go to find people. Like, it's just as simple as that.
And it's also as simple as you don't have to be all in to have an impact. As long as you are starting to do something and you have this intention of doing something, you are taking the first step to get there. Well, Mary, thank you for joining us today. Of course, you've got Check Call coming up this afternoon. Where can folks go to both check out that episode and then also subscribe to your newsletter?
You can go to freightwaves.com/checkcall. That's going to have everything that you want in one spot. And it should be a good episode today. We're also talking sustainability and ESGs.
Excellent stuff. It's one of my favorite topics. I've grown to really embrace this at this point because the companies need to realize that it's not a cost anymore. It is a cost of possibly not being in business if you don't embrace this, because the population and the laws are going that way because it needs to be done. So you need to start with those small steps, as you pointed out, Mary. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and you can catch Check Call this afternoon right here on FreightWaves TV. Right now, we're going to head back over to the wall. We've got our next carrier update of the morning.